VS Code suggests it for you. You can either click on enter and then you bring in your greater than symbol. So it's the symbols, the less than symbol and greater than symbol are basically what we use to define the opening tags and the closing tags and all that. So same thing for head. We bring in our title, same thing. We close it, then new HTML page, right? So this is our new title, and then right outside of the head and the body are the two main children of the HTML elements. So this is the root element, and then the children, the two main children it expects anytime, any day is the head and the body tag, the body element. So the same thing goes for the body as well. I hope, yeah.
Hello. Before you go to the body tag, I think Bryce's hand is up. Bryce, you can ask a question before you continue.
Okay, right.
So please, are we supposed to always be like memorizing these things? What I just realized that I typed HTML then :5 and I hit enter, and it brought all these things to me. So it makes my work
easier. Exactly. So because this is an introductory class, I had wanted to make sure you get the concept. So this is the syntax of what you're always supposed to do. But then with VS Code, I think you can always have I think these are called snippets. So if you install the extension, it would have this IntelliSense for you. I even think with HTML you don't need to install any extension. By default, if you know what you are doing, and as you said, if you come here and you bring you select the :5, it will give you the whole structure here for you, right? So that's a very good suggestion. But then for others who might not know how come we had all this HTML and the head and the body, we need to always go over and over for at least this introductory course. Then later on we'll be doing this shortcuts and all that. So it also gives you the same output, the head, HTML, the head, and then inside the head you have your meta tags. So we will come to these meta tags and then the title. So that's what I said earlier on. You always need to have the title of your document and then the meta tag. So this meta tag, the first one is setting I think the encoding, and the second one is setting compatibility, and the next one is also setting the device with the viewport and all that. These are things we will discuss in depth when we get into that side. Yeah, so this is the basic structure of an HTML. Yeah, I hope you're okay.
Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So what you know is just a shortcut. So we will probably get into more shortcuts as we go ahead. All right. So with the basics, I think we are done with it. So if you have the time and you come to this W3 schools and there are some examples quiz they do give. So you should be able to go through them and also solve them. It's basically what we'll be talking about. So as you can see, they are basically giving the definition of this doc type and then the headings, HTML headings, define with H1. So with the headings, it ranges from H1 to H6. So a heading, H1 is a syntax for giving a heading, how big you want the heading to be. For instance, if you buy a graphic and you are reading the text, you can see that the graphic usually have some big headings and then the text will continue. So how big do you want your text to be? You can use styling to style the head to be very big, but then that might be a waste of time because HTML has specific tags that are already designed or styled for you to have that view. So we can have all these heading, and then from H1 to H6, the H1 being the biggest heading you can ever get, and the H6 being the smallest heading. Yes, so that's it. So these are the elements. We can get into the element bits. So there are different type of elements. We have the H1, we have the paragraph, we have the A tag. So the A tag is basically a link. It's a hyperlink element. Hyperlink in the sense that it takes you from one location to the other location, or from a page to a different page. If you click on, let's say, a link and then it moves you to a different page. That is being done using an A tag. So an A tag basically moves you from one location to the other location. That's all an A tag does. So let me see if I can. So A tag is not here on this page. So those are some of the common elements you will be working with, right? Yeah, and yeah, so that's it about the elements. Now let's come to HTML attributes. So for an HTML element like the heading element.
George.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to start share the page. We are still
Okay.
seeing the.
You are still seeing the VS Code. Okay. Sorry. This switching usually is confusing. All right. Yeah. So you can see the page now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So for attributes, attributes provide additional information about HTML elements. So if you say attributes, they are basically giving you much more information, or they are giving you much more flexibility on the HTML elements you are using. So an HTML element can have attributes or multiple attributes, and these attributes provide additional information about the element themselves. They are always starting with they always specified in the starting tag. Yes. So for an element, you know the basic structure of an HTML element. It has an opening tag and a closing tag. And all this, and in the opening tag of an HTML element, that's where you usually put in attributes. So for instance, the href attributes. Now, the href attribute is most of the times used on the A element. This is the hyperlink or the hyperlink element in HTML. The hyperlink is basically, as I explained, it moves you from one location to the other. So if, let's say, you're on the index page or the home page and you want to go to the About Us page, you need to click on the A element or the hyperlink element to move you to this new location you want to go. So that's it about that particular element in HTML. So anywhere you see this A tag, you should know that it's a hyperlink element. It moves you from one location to the other location on a web page. And then with this particular HTML element, it basically has this href attribute. Now this href attribute is what is actually taking the new link you want to visit or you want to go to. So as you can see here, the A tag defines a hyperlink. The href attribute specifies the URL of the page the link goes to. So if you have, for example, this A with href and the contents of this attribute, which is href, that's the attributes of this A element. It has http www.w3schools.com. So once a user comes and sees this link and it clicks on it, it would route the user from whichever page they clicked on this link from to this new link, which is www.w3schools.com. So with an example, we can have something like that in our code. Let me switch. So in this code, we can have an A element here. And then with VS Code, if you click on, let's say I want to do A element and I click on A, it will suggest these things for you. You can always, once you have what you need, you just use the tab key on your keyboard. So you click on this tab key and then it will auto-complete the HTML element for you. You don't need to be typing the whole thing from A to Z. So if you, let's say you want a paragraph element, we type P and then we click on tab, then it will auto-complete it for us. You don't always have to be typing the less than, P, greater than, and then space to put in our body and then go. That's a waste of time. So VS Code does all this auto-completing thing for you with no, with less hassle. So we want to link our page. Our page is go to Google landing page, and then the site, the link to that Google landing page is https://google.com. So now with this, if we go to our web page, I think if you go to our web page, you should see. Okay, let me open this. So this I think this is on our home page. Okay, so I think let me use this rather, because we already have this guy open here. So let me use this here, hello world, then we put the link here, we save it, and we go to the page. Now we should see it here. So this is the link that hyperlink element we just created, and now when I click on it, it will take me to the landing page, which I say, which is the landing page of google.com. So basically that's been done using the help of attributes. The attribute basically gives more information to the HTML elements we have. So the same thing can be done for the image attributes, the image elements. So the other type of image element we have is IMG, which stands for the image element. That's what we use to display images on a web page. So if you define your image element and then using the source attribute, if you see this SRC here, that's the source attributes you need to show the particular image you want to show on a particular web page. So let's say I have my ID passport picture and I want to show it on my landing page or my home page. I can use this image element and then specify the attribute source and then provide the URL. So here we can provide a relative URL or an absolute URL. So the difference between the two URLs is that an absolute URL moves you from, it's a complete URL that has all the elements of a URL, which will take you to an external web page or something. And the relative one is, it's relative to the work or the domain or the project you're working within. So let's say if I'm working within my introduction to front-end project and I want to go to the About Us page, I don't need to specify my whole domain, www.introductiontofrontend.com/about us. There's a way I can shorten it because it's within my project, so I can just use /about us because it's relative to my project. It would know where it would know how to take me there. So that's the difference between the URL. So there's an absolute URL and there's a relative URL. So these are the different type of URLs you can be working with. So for the attribute that usually demands for URLs to be entered. So let's say the A attribute, which takes href, the A element which takes the href attribute, you can specify either an absolute URL or a relative URL. This is an absolute URL because it has the whole it has the whole syntax of a URL without breaking it into any half or any parts. So that's it about attributes. So there are different attributes based on the element in question. So for instance, with the same image element, which by the way, it has a different syntax in defining its element, in defining its tags. You can see that it doesn't have any closing tag. These are some of the different type of elements we can have. We have the elements which do not have closing tags. Some do have closing tags, but then it's within the opening tag of the element. So let's say with this image, we could have this as the have this. So this is our image tag. So obviously, if you want to do it from scratch, you type img in VS Code and you hit on tab, then it will auto complete it for you. So you realize that it doesn't have this bit as part of it. It doesn't have this thing here. It doesn't have the closing tag with the / and the name of the tag. It's just this bit of it, and it's done in that way because that's the way it works. That's the a standardized way of writing something like that. So you basically have to go with that flow, and then you do what you want to do. So yeah, so those are some of the things you have to look out for. We have the element which has both opening tags and the closing tag, and some too that only have opening tags. And then for you to specify an attribute, it's usually within the opening tag. So the first bit of it, that's where you have to specify your attribute. So with this A tag, we could also have a different attribute called, let's say, target _ target. So we could have target as another attribute of this hyperlink elements, and then this target also does something differently for the A element. So that's it. We have several elements and their attributes. You can come here and just go through them, and then basically you know what to do. And for the P element too, we can have title as an attribute, and this title basically gives you a bit of information whenever you hover on a paragraph. So let's say I have my name here. I have a piece of text. So P tab. This is a class session, and I want the user to have an information whenever they hover on it. I can add my title attribute to it and say read this info. So whenever they hover on it, they will see some description or summary about this plenty things. I'll probably write here. So I can have several things here, and then when I save it and come to the web page and reload it, so as I hover on it, you see this read this info. So that's one of the that's one of the usefulness of having some of these attributes on these HTML elements. So that's it for this section. Any questions so far? Are you lost? Is there anything you want to ask? Okay, if there are no questions, then I think we can move ahead. Yeah, so so we've done a bit about headings, we've done a bit about paragraphs, and now we can move on to HTML styles. So styling, we said earlier on that for web we need to have knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now the HTML is the hypertext stuff you are doing. Now these are just raw text. You can see that on this page there's nothing fancy here. This is not what you see when you go to a typical website. So you ask yourself, how is it possible that this normal text is able to be transformed into the beautiful site you see on the different websites you visit? So those are possible by using styling. So before HTML is complete in a way that it also has styling elements that you can use to also style your code, even without using the CSS, because CSS is the main way of styling your website. That's the painting bit. You build a house, if you don't paint it, it's just normal house, but then you paint it and you give it some different flair and it makes it look beautiful. So CSS is a different language for styling. We'll come to that, but then in the meantime, HTML provides a way for us to style our skeleton UI that we see. So we can have basic styling by using the attribute called style. So this attribute style is available on all HTML, almost all HTML elements, and it can help you style your particular HTML element by providing some key value properties. So if you say key value properties, it means there's a name and a value. That's what we call the properties in the style attribute. So you have a tag name, then you provide a style attribute, and then you provide your information. So let's say you want to color this hello world into a blue text. So what do we do? First of all, we can put this HTML hello world into the heading tag. So H1 or H2 or H3. From 1 to 6, you can provide any number based on the level of thickness you want the word to be. So let's go with the H1, and then we click on tab. We provide text, which is hello world. Now I want to style this into a blue text. So we bring the style attributes. Remember, I said the style attribute is almost available for every, I think it's for every element in HTML. So once you provide a style, you can provide some basic info to style this particular text. So now for this HTML, for this attribute, you want to style the text. So in HTML, if you want to style the text using the style attribute, you just provide the color. So I want a color blue. Then you bring a semicolon. That's how you separate it from other style. So I want this HTML text to be styled blue. So now let's see how it looks like on the web page. So you can see this word styled blue, and then it has its thickness and all that. We didn't have to do any specific styling because the HTML H1 element is already structured for us in a way. So the reason why sometimes we advise that you use proper HTML element to style your web pages, that they've done some of the work for you with some of these HTML elements. So you don't need to be doing a whole lot of styling. You'll be adding paddings and style and margins on the text and all that. These native HTML elements are already they're already structured or formatted for you. So you just need to do a few to get the beauty out of it. So that's it with the styling. So styling is the style word is just an attribute on any HTML element. So once you provide it on the tag name and you provide the key value pair, you'll be on your way to making a very beautiful website. So we have the color property for the style. We have the background. So let's say you want to style the whole background. Let's say blue background, or let's say red. Let me use red. So we can style this. So this body too is an HTML element, and it can also take the style attributes. So we can provide the background. Background should be red, and then we terminate it. We bring the semicolon, and then we save. Once we do this and we come here, we should have a red background. So this is a quick way of styling your HTML stuff if you don't want to use the CSS, which we are yet to even cover when you move ahead. So any questions so far for the styling? Are there any questions so far? Do you have any challenge? I hope you are following. You're also doing the same thing. Hello, class. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, so those are some of the basic styles we can apply using the style attribute. These are basic stuff, but then you have to know them so that in future, if you see them somewhere, you don't worry at all. So there are several attributes. There are several properties we can have in the style attributes. So we've done the color, we've done the background, and we have this background color. So the background is a generic way of styling the whole background. So background in CSS, we will come to it later, which can include the background color, the background size, the background color, the background height, and all these things, the background size, the background, if there's any image on the background, you can even set it using the background property. But then for shortcuts for styling the color, you can just provide the background keyword and then provide the value. But then if you want to be specific with the color, you can also provide background color. So I can show that by just coming here, and instead of background here, I'll do background. So with VS Code, it also suggests for you. So once you start typing the background, you can see some suggestions here. So you can select the first one. And as I said, we have different types. The background keyword alone is a generic property, but we can have background color, background image, background position, background repeat, background size. We will come to all these when we are doing CSS in proper. But now we can just use background color, and it should give us the same output here we did. So it gives us the same red. We can change it to green, and then save it. We come here, the color changes to green. So we can also use some of these different property names on this attributes, style attribute, to get some styling going on for you. So text styling, we've already done it. You only provide a property name, color, and then provide your value. The value for the color can be anything, any color you know, from all the basic colors. The secondary, any color you know, you can put it here. And then we have for the colors, we have different type of color. We have the RGB color, the hex color. We will come to all those when you're doing CSS. So yeah, so that's it for the basic styling. And then we have the text size. So now for the text size, you realize that for the H1, it was big, but we didn't do anything to change the size of it.